My grandchildren thought Grandma's food was simple until they tried to cook it. The smell of cinnamon and butter floated through Grandma Rose's kitchen like a warm hug you didn't know you needed. 16-year-old Emma pushed her plate away, barely touched, scrolling through her phone. Her twin brother Jake was already reaching for thirds of the apple pie, but he wasn't really tasting it anymore. 12-year-old Lily picked at her pot roast, making a face at the carrots. "Grandma, no offense, but this is just basic food," Emma said, not looking up. "Like anyone could make this stuff." Rose's weathered hands paused over the serving spoon. Her smile didn't falter, but something flickered in her eyes, something old and sad and knowing. She was 78 years old, and her fingers were bent with arthritis, but those hands had never stopped moving, never stopped cooking, never stopped loving. "You think so?" Rose asked quietly. "I mean, yeah," Jake added, his mouth full. "It's good, Grandma, but it's not like your Gordon Ramsay or anything. It's just home cooking. Nothing special." Lily giggled. "We could totally make this ourselves if we wanted to." Rose nodded slowly, folding her napkin with precise, careful movements. "Then maybe you should," she said. Her voice was gentle, but there was something underneath it, a challenge, a sadness, a goodbye they were too young to hear. That was the last Sunday dinner Grandma Rose ever cooked. On Monday morning, she collapsed in her garden, her hand still reaching for a tomato that was finally ripe. The hospital room was too white, too quiet except for the beeping machines. Rose lay small and pale against the pillows, looking suddenly ancient in a way she never had before. And 4 dripped clear liquid into her arm. The stroke had stolen the strength from her right side, the doctors said. She could recover, maybe with time. But her cooking days were over. Emma stood by the window, her arms wrapped around herself, guilt sitting in her stomach like a stone. Jake couldn't stop staring at his grandmother's twisted hand. Lily was crying softly, her face pressed against her mother's side. "I'm so sorry, Grandma," Emma whispered. "What I said, I didn't mean." Rose's left hand moved weakly, reaching for Emma's. "You were right," she managed, her words slow and slurred. "Anyone can cook. But—" She closed her eyes, exhausted. Not everyone knows why. Their mother, Sarah, squeezed Rose's hand. "Don't worry about anything, Mom. Just rest. We'll take care of everything." Rose's eyes opened one more time, finding each of her grandchildren. "The recipes," she breathed. "In the yellow box under my bed. Everything you need." "We'll find them," Sarah promised. "We'll take care of your house." But Rose shook her head slightly. "Not for keeping. For learning." None of them understood. Not yet. The next day, Rose was moved to a rehabilitation facility. Her little house stood empty, waiting. Emma knelt on the floor of her grandmother's bedroom, pulling the yellow recipe box from under the bed. It was old, the metal corners dented, the paint faded and chipped. She'd seen it 1,000 times but never really looked at it. Jake and Lily crowded around as she lifted the lid. Inside were hundreds of index cards, some typed, most handwritten in Rose's careful cursive. But these weren't just recipes. They were stories. Emma pulled out the first card. "Sunday pot roast," it said across the top. But underneath the ingredients and instructions, there were words in blue ink. Asterisk, "Started making this when your grandfather worked double shifts at the factory. He'd come home exhausted, barely able to speak. This meal told him, you're home. You're safe. Someone sees how hard you work. The carrots take exactly 4 hours to become sweet enough to make a tired man smile." Asterisk. Emma's throat tightened. Jake grabbed another card. "Apple pie." His voice cracked as he read aloud. Asterisk, "My mother's recipe from 1952. She made this the day we got the telegram about my brother Jimmy. Killed in Korea, age 19. She didn't speak for 3 days. Just baked. The cinnamon hides the salt from tears in the dough. Always use cold butter. Always bake with love, even when love is all you have left to give." Asterisk. Lily's hands shook as she picked up a card with a child's drawing on it. "Chocolate chip cookies." The note read, asterisk, Sarah's favorite when she was 7. Made these every day for a month after her father died. She wouldn't talk about him, Wouldn't cry, just asked for cookies. I finally understood. She was eating memories, trying to taste the sweetness before it all turned to pain. Sometimes food is the only language grief understands. Asterisk. Sarah was their mother. They'd never known their grandfather had died when she was young. The box was full of secrets, full of pain and love, mixed together like flour and water, inseparable. We should cook for her, Emma said suddenly, standing in Grandma's kitchen 3 days later. When she comes home from rehab, we should make her Sunday dinner. Show her we understand now. Jake nodded. Show her we're sorry. Lily clutched the pot roast recipe card. Show her we love her. How hard could it be? They had the recipe right there. Every ingredient, every step, every temperature. They were smart kids. They could follow directions. They started at noon, figuring 4 hours would be plenty of time for a 6 o'clock meal. The first problem was the meat. The recipe just said season generously. What did that mean? Emma dumped salt and pepper on it, probably too much, maybe not enough. The meat sat on the counter, looking back at them like a challenge. Jake couldn't get the oven to the right temperature. It kept climbing too high, then dropping too low. Lily chopped the carrots, but they came out all different sizes, some huge, some tiny. The recipe didn't say how big to cut them. By 2 o'clock, the kitchen was a disaster. Flour covered the counters from Lily's failed attempt at biscuits. The pot roast sat in the oven, but something smelled wrong. Not bad exactly, just not right. Not like Grandma's kitchen ever smelled. The recipe says to add the vegetables after 2 hours, Jake read. Should we add them now? I don't know, Emma said, frustrated. Is the meat cooking right? How do we know? The card didn't say. Grandma had just known. At 4 o'clock, Emma opened the oven and wanted to cry. The roast was gray and tough-looking. The carrots had somehow both burned on the edges and stayed hard in the middle. The gravy was lumpy and thin at the same time. Maybe it'll taste better than it looks, Lily said hopefully. It didn't. They sat at Grandma's table, trying to eat what they'd made. It wasn't inedible, exactly. But it wasn't food. It was just ingredients that had been in an oven together. There was no warmth in it. No comfort, no love. Jake put down his fork. How did she do it? The recipe is right here. Emma stared at the card. Asterisk, this meal told him, you're home. You're safe. Asterisk, their pot roast told them nothing except that they'd failed. They tried again the next day. And the next. And the next. Emma attempted the apple pie 5 times. Each one was wrong in a different way. Too sour, too sweet, crust like cardboard, filling like soup. She wanted to scream. She followed every instruction exactly. Why wasn't it working? On the 6th attempt, standing in Grandma's kitchen at midnight, flour in her hair and tears on her face, Emma finally read the note again. Really read it. Asterisk, always bake with love, even when love is all you have left to give. Asterisk, her grandmother had been baking through grief, through the worst pain of her life. And somehow, that pain and love had mixed into something that could comfort other people decades later. Emma thought about Sunday dinners. Really thought about them. Grandma never just cooked. She watched them while she cooked. She asked about their week. She noticed when Jake was upset about soccer, when Emma was stressed about tests, when Lily felt left out. And somehow, the food that came out of that kitchen responded to what they needed. Warm when they were sad. Sweet when they were struggling. Solid and simple when the world felt too complicated. The recipe card didn't say, add 2 cups of love, or stir in 3 tablespoons of paying attention. But that was the real recipe, wasn't it? Jake found her in the kitchen at 1 in the morning. Can't sleep either? He asked. I keep thinking about what Grandma said. Anyone can cook, but not everyone knows why. Emma wiped her eyes. We've been cooking because we want to prove something. Because we feel guilty. But Grandma, she cooked because she was trying to say things she didn't have words for. Like, I love you. Lily appeared in the doorway, hugging the recipe box. Like that, Emma said. But also, I see you. You matter. You're not alone. They stood together in Grandma's kitchen, surrounded by their failures, finally understanding what they'd lost. They started over, but differently this time. Emma made pie dough with her phone put away, her hands working slowly, paying attention to how the butter felt, how the dough came together. She thought about her grandmother's hands making this same dough hundreds of times. Thousands of times. Those bent, arthritic fingers that never stopped trying to love people through food. Jake cooked the pot roast, but this time, he didn't just watch the clock. He opened the oven every 30 minutes, looked at the meat, smelled it, learned to recognize when it was right. He realized the recipe couldn't tell him everything because every roast was different, every oven was different, and you had to pay attention, had to care enough to notice. Lily made cookies, and for the first time, she understood why Grandma always made them hum while baking. It wasn't just a quirk. It was because you could tell when cookies were done by smell, and by the sound they made in the oven, the way the sizzling changed. You had to pay attention with all your senses. You had to be fully there. They were learning a language that had no words. 2 weeks after Grandma's stroke, their mother came into the kitchen and stopped in the doorway. Emma was stirring gravy with the same circular motion Rose always used, clockwise, patient, constant. Jake was setting the table the way Grandma always did, forks on the left, knives facing in. Lily was pulling biscuits from the oven, and the smell. Sarah started crying. Mom. Emma turned, worried. It smells like my childhood, Sarah whispered. It smells like being loved. They ate together that night, and the food still wasn't perfect. The roast was a little dry. The pie crust was a little thick. But there was something in it that hadn't been there before. Something that tasted like trying, like caring, like love learning to speak. We want to bring dinner to Grandma, Emma said. Is she allowed to have visitors? Sarah nodded.
She'd like that.
But what they didn't know was that Rose's recovery had stalled. The therapists were worried. She wouldn't eat the facility food. She was giving up, growing smaller and quieter every day, fading like an old photograph. The rehabilitation center smelled like antiseptic and sadness. The kids carried containers of food through sterile hallways, past rooms full of old people who looked like they were waiting to die. Grandma Rose's room was at the end of the hall. She sat in a wheelchair by the window, staring at nothing. She'd lost weight, her clothes hanging loose. Her left hand lay in her lap, and her right hand curled uselessly against her chest. When they came in, she turned slowly, and Emma's heart broke at how empty her eyes looked. Grandma, Emma said softly, we brought you dinner. Rose's expression didn't change. Not hungry, she mumbled. It's pot roast, Jake said. Your recipe. We made it. A tiny flicker of something, interest, doubt, crossed Rose's face. They set up the food on the small table. The smell filled the room, pushing back the antiseptic. Lily opened the container of biscuits. Jake uncovered the roast, the vegetables, the gravy. Emma cut the pie. We read your notes, Emma said, pulling a chair close to her grandmother. On the recipe cards. We didn't know, Grandma. We didn't know what you were saying when you cooked. Rose's left hand moved slightly. Saying? That you loved us, Lily said, her voice small. That you saw us. That we mattered. We're so sorry, Jake added.
For what we said.
For not understanding. Emma took her grandmother's good hand. We tried to cook it. It took us 2 weeks to even get close. And we realized the recipe isn't really the recipe. The food is just the vehicle. The real thing you were giving us was... She struggled for words. It was you, your attention, your care, your whole heart, every single Sunday. Tears spilled down Rose's weathered cheeks. We'll never make it like you did, Emma continued. But we tried to make it like you taught us. With love. By paying attention. By trying to say things we don't have words for. Rose looked at the food, then back at her grandchildren's faces. Slowly, she nodded. Emma fixed a plate with shaking hands. Tender roast, soft carrots, rich gravy over a biscuit. She lifted a forkful to her grandmother's mouth. Rose took the bite. Closed her eyes.
Chewed slowly.
More tears came, but her face changed.
Softened.
Came alive. The carrots, she whispered. You cooked them with love. Rose came home 3 weeks later, but she didn't come home to an empty house. Her grandchildren had moved in temporarily, sleeping on the couch and in sleeping bags. The kitchen was alive again, not with Rose cooking, but with 3 teenagers learning, failing, trying again, slowly getting better. Rose sat in her chair, wrapped in quilts, directing with her good hand and her words. But mostly she just watched, and that watching meant everything. "The biscuits are tough," Jake said one evening, frustrated. "Because you're angry at them," Rose said quietly. "You're mixing them like they did something wrong. Biscuits need gentle hands. They need you to be patient." Jake stopped,
Took a breath.
started over, softening his touch. The biscuits came out perfect. Emma burned the gravy and wanted to quit. "I can't do this, Grandma. I'm never going to get it right." "Come here," Rose said. Emma knelt by her chair. "You know what the secret is? The real secret to all of it." Emma shook her head. "It's not about getting it right. It's about showing up. About trying. About caring enough to keep going even when it's hard." Rose's good hand touched Emma's face. "You think I never burned gravy? I burned everything. But I kept trying because the people I loved needed to be fed. Not just their stomachs. Their hearts." "How do you feed someone's heart?" Lily asked from the doorway. Rose smiled, the first real smile since her stroke. "You pay attention. You notice what they need. You remember that everyone is fighting a battle you can't see, and sometimes a warm meal is the only thing that says keep fighting." The kids started keeping their own notes on the recipe cards. Emma wrote on the pie card, "Asterisk, made this for Grandma after her stroke. Cried while I rolled the dough. Realized crying is okay. Realized love and sadness are mixed together like ingredients. I can't separate them. Shouldn't try." Asterisk. Jake added to the pot roast, "Asterisk, this takes patience. So does loving people. So does forgiving yourself. Made this 12 times before it was right. Grandma said that was the lesson.
Keep trying. Keep loving.
Keep showing up." Asterisk. Lily wrote on the cookie card, "Asterisk, these taste like home. Realized home isn't a place. It's the feeling of being loved. You can bake that feeling into food if you remember what love feels like when you mix the batter." Asterisk. The yellow box was becoming their story, too. 6 months after the stroke, Rose was stronger. Her speech was clearer. Her right hand worked a little, though it would never be the same. But she could stand with the walker now, could move around her kitchen. On a cold Sunday in October, she supervised as her grandchildren made the full Sunday dinner themselves. She didn't touch a single ingredient. Just watched, corrected, guided, taught. The table filled with food that wasn't perfect but was made with love. Sarah came with her husband. They invited the elderly neighbor who lived alone. They called Grandma's sister in another state and set up a video call so she could be part of it too. They blessed the food, but before they ate, Emma spoke up. "Grandma, we want to say something." She looked at her siblings, who nodded. "We thought your food was simple. We thought anyone could do it. And we were so wrong. But we were also a little bit right." Rose raised an eyebrow. "Anyone can learn to cook," Jay continued. "But what you taught us is bigger than recipes. You taught us how to love people, how to pay attention, how to show up, how to keep trying even when it's hard." "You taught us that food is a language," Lily added. "And the language says you matter. You're not alone. Someone sees you." Emma pulled out the yellow box. "And we want to keep learning. Not just how to make pot roast, but how to love like you love. How to see people like you see them. How to make our lives say what your cooking always said." Rose was crying again, but smiling through the tears. "That's all I ever wanted," she whispered. "For you to know that love is a verb. It's something you do, every day, in simple ways, until the simple ways become the whole story of your life." They ate together, passing dishes, sharing stories, laughing and crying. The food was good, really good, but it was the being together that mattered. It was the paying attention, the caring, the showing up. That was the real recipe. It always had been. 5 years later, Emma stood in her first apartment's tiny kitchen, making pot roast for her college friends. She was 21 now, studying to be a teacher. The yellow recipe box sat on her counter, stained and worn, full of cards that held a lifetime of love. She'd added her own cards. Ramen upgrade. Made this during finals week for my roommate who was breaking down. Sometimes the fancy recipe is wrong. Sometimes people just need you to sit with them and share something simple and say, "I see that you're struggling." Jake was cooking Sunday dinners for his high school wrestling team, feeding the kids whose parents worked weekends. He'd learned that some of those boys came to practice just for the meal afterward, just to feel like someone cared. He made sure they always left full. Lily, now 17, baked cookies for the hospice center, where Grandma Rose volunteered 2 days a week. Rose couldn't cook anymore, not really, but she could sit with the dying and hold their hands. And Lily's cookies said what words couldn't. Your life mattered. You won't be forgotten. This sweetness is here, because you were here. They gathered every Sunday at Grandma's house still. The tradition held. And now they brought friends, neighbors, anyone who needed a place at the table. One Sunday, Emma's friend Marcus asked, "How did you learn to cook like this?" Emma smiled, holding the pot roast card with her grandmother's handwriting. "My grandma taught me, but not the way you think. She taught me that food isn't about impressing people. It's about loving them. And love is in the details, the time you take, the attention you pay, the way you remember what someone needs even when they don't say it." Rose, now 83 and moving slowly, but still sharp as ever, reached over and squeezed Emma's hand with her good one. "She taught us that simple things done with love aren't simple at all," Jake added. "They're everything." "She taught us that anyone can learn to cook," Lily finished. "But learning to cook with love? That takes a lifetime. And it's the most important thing you can learn." That evening, after everyone left and they were cleaning up, Emma found a new card in the yellow box, written in Rose's shaky handwriting. "Asterisk, my darlings. You thought my food was simple. You were wrong. But now you understand. The recipe was never about the food. It was about teaching you to love. And you have learned. You are taking this love into the world. You are feeding people's hearts. You are paying attention. You are showing up. This is my legacy, not the recipes, but what you do with them. Keep cooking.
Keep loving.
Keep showing up. This is how we save each other, one meal at a time. This is how we tell the world. You matter. You are not alone. Someone sees you. Love, Grandma." Asterisk. Emma pressed the card to her heart and cried. But they were good tears. They were grateful tears. They were the tears of someone who had been given a gift beyond measure and had finally learned to use it. Outside, the sun set over the little house where thousands of meals had been made with love, where simple food had told complicated stories, where recipes had taught the most important lessons, where a grandmother had shown 3 children that love is something you do every single day, in simple ways, until the simple ways become everything.